So now we get to space arcs and the ancient technologies. So these space arcs, they have a lot of ancient technologies on them. And I've talked about this in one of my earlier webinars, so you can find it on Vimeo now, where I talk about the space arcs and their history and what they bring with them and how that's all relevant today. And so just to kind of like recapitulate again, the space arcs are based on these legends that pervade the world about these wooden arcs that carried people to refuge during times of cataclysm. So these legends are found all over the world. There are more than 270 flood stories that can be found everywhere, and you have very similar themes of the savior being helped by a kind of like an angel or God or some being, transcendental being, building some craft, some device, wooden, using the local technologies at the time, wooden boats, and taking them out of those places. Now, consider that around 2500 BC, that these technologies, the flying technologies, did actually exist, or were still known to an elite, to a few. The ruling class did know about these and did use this. So, that's very suggestive that these stories of these flying craft over the course of oral history were kind of like reinterpreted to be, rather than flying spacecraft, to be reinterpreted as wooden boats carrying people to safety, because by the time a lot of these legends kind of like were transcribed, there'd been many thousands of years since a lot of these flying craft had been seen. There was a remote viewing experiment of Noah's Ark by the Farsight Institute. I mean, there's the link there. I did a story on that in exopolitics.org. So they talk about Noah's Ark as actually being a flying spacecraft. So this is the key phrase of the conclusion that Dr. Courtney Brown reached when his team of remote viewers looked at this. Quote, "There was a great flood and an ark filled with animals, and there was a Noah fellow and a subject who Noah thought was God. However, after that, the story dramatically diverges from the legends as found in the ancient texts. The ark itself was, in fact, a very large, high-tech structure, a spaceship that was mostly submerged underwater at the time of the flood." So the legendary arks are extraterrestrial spacecraft. So, as I said, if you wanted to kind of get more information about that, more details about the history that supports this conclusion that stories of wooden boats in Noah's Ark or wooden Apishtim in the Epic of Gilgamesh, that these actually refer to space arcs being used to transport a lot of people to safety during times of cataclysm. Now, JP has been taken to a number of buried space arcs. He's been sent to the moon on US-China missions, alien spacecraft where he saw that was buried under the moon's surface. That was discovered by U-22. That was the Chinese lunar rover. So this was a joint mission between the US and China. Another story is another expedition mission was to a submerged space arc under the Atlantic Ocean in the vicinity of the Bermuda Triangle. So this was where JP got to access a space arc under the water through a kind of like donut-shaped ocean platform that was controlled by the US Navy, with in the center of it, of this ocean donut-shaped platform, there was an elevator that would go down to the space arc at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. So, is there any evidence for this? I mean, JP has said this. is there any evidence supporting it? People always ask for evidence. Well, I think what has just recently emerged is very important corroboration for JP's account of a mission he took to a submerged space ark under the Atlantic Ocean. So I put out a very short announcement a couple of days ago that there's a critical corroboration for JP's testimony, which is there was a remote viewing experiment of the Atlantic space ark. And this is really important because these remote viewers had no idea of JP's story. They had no idea who JP was. All they would give them were a set of alphanumeric coordinates. And this was done by Dick Algire, who I met earlier this year in Hawaii while I was traveling back from a trip to Australia. And we met and we talked and we shared information, and he was interested in kind of like collaborating. And he said, well, let's collaborate, but don't tell me anything about what it is you want to remote view. You'll be contacted by someone from my organization and they'll work with you to get targeting information. So that was a conversation. Later on, I was contacted by one of his team from the crypto viewing project, and they set up a double-blind protocol using alphanumerics. And this double-blind protocol is very important because what it means is that you actually have two targeters working with a team of remote viewers. Now, in the case of the Farsight Institute, they just have a blind remote viewing, which is where Courtney Brown will come up with a set of remote viewing targets and hand over and come up with alphanumerics that he gives to his team of remote viewers. While crypto viewing follows a double-blind experimental protocol, which is based on what the military remote viewing protocols are, which is that you have double-blind. So the person who directly interacts with the remote viewing team, the targeter, he himself has no idea what the target is. So there's a second targeter who knows what the target is. So I spoke to a gentleman from crypto viewing, told him about JP's experiences with this Atlantic space ark. So based on that, he came up with a set of alphanumerics that he then gave to another targeter who had no idea what the alphanumerics referred to. And that targeter then gave it to a team of 4 remote viewers. And they confirmed key elements of JP's testimony. This is what they confirmed. They corroborated that there's an ancient structure with space-time portals that form an extensive network. They confirmed that there were hieroglyphics on walls that tell Earth's history. They confirmed that there was an Aztec script or language found in the structure, which is what JP has confirmed, has said. I mean, he's described, during his Atlantic Ark missions, he described being accompanied by a group of Aztec Mexicans who started singing and chanting Okuria Mate, and as they sang and chanted Okuria Mate, they were able to penetrate further and further into the craft. And later on, it was realized that Okuria Mate is actually an activation. It actually allows you to kind of like enter further into these structures. The structure was identified as a large spacecraft with a time dilation effect inside it. So this is the crypto viewing team confirming what JP saw. And finally, a sarcophagi containing god kings with exceptional wisdom and powers. So JP said that he saw these sarcophagi in the Atlantic space ark, but he wasn't supposed to go up to them because they were viewed as very sacred, and that he and his team were instructed not to go up to them because they were deemed to be very sacred and they were protected in a certain way. So he didn't go up to them. But as I mentioned earlier, JP had gone to a large sarcophagus in this underground civilization in Florida where he saw a giant, a god king. similar to what the crypto viewing team are seeing under the Atlantic Space Arc. So these God Kings, whether we call them Anunnaki, space scientists, and I've talked a lot about this on my website, various interviews where the Anunnaki, according to the information that Elena Danaan has passed on through the Galactic Federation, that there was a schism, a conflict between the Anunnaki. When some of the Anunnaki left, Enki or Prince Ea left, he left behind some of his scientists. And so the scientists, rather than kind of like staying on Earth and being easy targets for the victorious faction led by Enlil, they decided to go into hibernation. So this is where you get stories of Thoth going to the halls of Amenti, Thoth going to Florida, going into one of these sarcophagi. And so similarly, you have other Anunnaki scientists, such as Aruna in places such as Iraq and so forth. And I've talked about that on my website. Well, is there more confirmation for any of this? Well, Jean-Charles Moyen has been taken to space arcs in Tibet, Antarctica, Japan, and Egypt. So we've done interviews where he talks about going inside. And interestingly, Elena Danaan says that she accompanied him on these teleportation experiences where JP was taken to Antarctica and to Japan, where he interacted with space arcs. Elena says that she was also teleported there by the Galactic Federation, and she was there just to be a witness, to corroborate JP's story. So Jean-Charles Moyen's experiences. So Jean-Charles Moyen himself has the kind of genetics and consciousness to be able to interact with these arcs. So space arcs are activating worldwide and releasing probes. So this is where we get into a very recent development that corroborates that what JP has been saying, what Jean-Charles has been saying, what Elena has been saying, that the space arcs are activating. And as they activate, they are releasing probes, orbs, that monitor the surrounding environment. And isn't it interesting? We have major news stories suddenly covering this. Alien mothership lurking in our solar system could be watching us with tiny probe. Pentagon official suggests. What? A Pentagon official is saying that there might be alien motherships sending tiny probes to monitor us? What in the world's going on? This is a major story that actually was picked up by a number of mainstream news sites that talked about two prominent individuals, scientists, saying that an explanation for the increasing UFO sightings is motherships releasing probes. Where are we heading with this? Well, let me kind of take you into who is talking about this. This story is based on a paper written by two scientists. One of them is Professor Avi Loeb, former head of Harvard University's astronomy department, and he became known for writing a number of papers and then a book that Oumuamua was an interstellar spacecraft. This was the first interstellar object to enter our solar system, according to mainstream scientists. And Avi Loeb reached prominence and he got a lot of media exposure because he was promoting the idea that this was not a natural object, but this was in fact an artificial craft built by extraterrestrials, that Oumuamua was an extraterrestrial spacecraft. Now, what's interesting about Avi Loeb, in addition to him having impeccable scientific credentials as the former, I think was the longest-serving head of Harvard's astronomy department, was that he was a graduate of Israel's Talpiot military intelligence program, and that picks very talented Israeli youth to be exposed to Israel's military intelligence community to kind of like brainstorm, come up with creative problem-solving solutions so that they can then go on to help the military intelligence community come up with novel solutions, but they follow conventional careers. So while he might not openly admit it, Avi Loeb, I believe, works very closely with Israel's military intelligence community. And here's the other one, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, head of the Pentagon's ARO office, which is the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, created in July 2022. So he's a former chief scientist for the Defense Intelligence Agency's Missile and Space Intelligence Center. And he worked for the US Air Force. He's worked for the US Air Force, the Navy, the National Reconnaissance Office, the CIA in research laboratories. So this is a guy who's well read into classified programs that I believe deal with extraterrestrial technologies that have been reverse engineered in secret space programs. I think you don't have a better candidate than him. So who better to put in charge of this new UFO office in the United States or in the Pentagon that's supposed to research UFOs and, like, you know, what are they? You know, let's find out. Let's look at all the witness reports. And, you know, I think Kirkpatrick and Avi Loeb know very well what these objects are. But interestingly, they released a paper proposing this mothership theory for UFOs. So this is the paper. It came out. It's under review for a journal, and it's called Physical Constraints in Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. And of course, it uses very technical jargon for describing the kind of aerial phenomena and how it fits in with kind of astronomical kind of explanations for objects that are seen in space. But in their paper, they referred to motherships 3 times, but these are the 2 times that I think are most relevant for us. Quote, consequently, the mothership probe scenario is more energetically viable. What? Here you have 2 leading scientists saying that a compelling explanation for UFOs that are being seen in the United States, around the world, are probes from motherships. In principle, the second phrase from their paper, in principle, a multitude of tiny devices can be released from a mothership that passes near Earth. So there you have it. They are proposing seriously that many of these UFO sightings are coming from motherships that are passing near the Earth. Now, those of you that have been following my work over the last few years know that this is exactly what JP, Elena Dunant, Jean-Charles Moyen, Alex Collier, James Gilliland, and a number of others have been saying, that there have been an incursion of extraterrestrial motherships in our solar system recently, and that they are flying closer and closer to the Earth, and they're kind of monitoring things on the Earth. So Kirkpatrick and Loeb are putting it out into the public consciousness that this is exactly what is going on. Now, what's interesting is that their paper came out shortly after you have these UFO incidents. Of course, in the week beginning February 4, the week after that Chinese spy craft was shot down, that Chinese balloon, supposedly Chinese balloon, was shot down. You had 3 other shoot downs on Friday over Alaska, Saturday over the Yukon, and then Saturday over, what is that state there? That's I don't know, Nebraska? I think it's Nebraska. So, and of course the Pentagon has just said, yeah, we shot them down, but and there have been Freedom of Information Act requests like, show us what you shot down, because they actually took images, but they're not sharing it. They classified the information. But Avi Loeb and Sean Kirkpatrick are releasing a paper on probes from alien motherships. Like, you know, if you add 2 and 2 together, what do you get? I think you get this. So Loeb and Kirkpatrick, they're promoting the mothership orb theory, and I think it's because that is part of this deep state initiative. As I said, Avi Loeb, military, Israel's military intelligence community, Sean Kirkpatrick, he is as deep state as you get. You look at his pedigree, he's been read into a lot of these classified programs. So, of course, here you have the meme 2020, what was the big distraction? 2021, what was the big distraction there? 2022, well, we're seeing the what's happening in Ukraine, and 2023. I think this is pretty accurate, that the UFO scenario is going to be the big distraction that the deep state is rolling out. And they're rolling it out for some important reasons. So why are Loeb and Kirkpatrick promoting the mothership orb theory? Well, they obviously want to, I think, shape public perceptions for official disclosure that some UFOs are from alien motherships. That's very clear. And who was the first person to propose this? Here's a diagram from 1952. George Adamski took photographs, which have never been debunked, of a cigar-shaped spacecraft releasing scoutcraft, 5 scoutcraft. So motherships releasing orbs or scoutcraft has been known for a long time. So why are Loeb, Kirkpatrick promoting the mothership orb theory? I think it's because they know that there's a countdown to space arcs revealing themselves, exactly what JP and others have been saying. And this countdown can't be stopped. You can't stop it. So if you can't stop it, what can you do? You want to shape public perceptions so that you are in a position to deceive the public with an agenda that you want them to think. And I think the groundwork has been laid for suggesting that these UFOs that were shot down were in fact UFOs from these motherships, and they could be hostile. Okay, that's the perception. So that, I think, is pretty much a deep state initiative. So JP recently confirmed that the space arcs are indeed releasing orbs. So this is an update. So you're getting the scoop on this. This update is going to come out tomorrow. So you get to listen to the whole thing tomorrow. But what I'm going to do today is play 3 extracts from this upcoming interview with JP, where he talks about the space arcs releasing orbs. So let's listen to the first extract. So why did they show you that library?
They showed me this library to explain what are these orbs flying around and who's controlling these orbs. So these orbs are being controlled by the arcs, but we all know who control the arcs. You know, how this is affecting how people are seeing UFOs, UAPs, whatever you want to call them.
That's very interesting, because I know that the Harvard astronomer, Professor R.V. Loeb, and the head of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, have just released a paper where they talk about motherships arriving in our solar system being behind all of these small metallic orbs. So it sounds like maybe they know about this library, or they were given this similar intel.
Yeah, I'm sure they know about this library, and they're letting the public know what's happening, because it is getting to the point that people are seeing them, you know, and some particular people that are chosen also, they can summon these orbs, people that have the DNA or connected to these arcs. And it's kind of interesting, because I was looking at the guy reading it, and he was looking at me, and he asked me, "Hey, you've been to these arcs, right? So what is that you feel when you go to these arcs?" I say, "I feel happiness. I feel a sense of freedom. I feel that the arc is connected." So there's people that are connected to these arcs as well as connected to these orbs, and these orbs sometimes pick up these particular people that are chosen to bring them back to the arc for them to download the information that it's out there, or inner earth, because some inner earth civilization also have beings that are connected to the arcs and also come in and out. I remember when I went to the chambers where the ant people are, I was seeing these orbs flying around, and just studying certain beings and just leaving, grabbing information. We're gonna come to a point that everybody are gonna see these UAPs, UFOs, but these are really orbs and crafts that are receiving information to bring back to the Ark. And people are gonna see more and more of these orbs.
So what JP is telling us here is that he was taken to a library containing ancient artifacts on a military base. And this library contains ancient scriptures describing the behavior of these orbs, of these motherships, of these arcs, of these space arcs in ancient societies, ancient civilizations. Essentially, the deep state is in a panic. They don't know how to deal with the arcs, the space arcs that are activating and are releasing more and more of these orbs that are being seen as spacecraft. And so the deep state is trying to come up with some way of being able to kind of spin this in a way that promotes their power. Now, JP talked about people needing to have the right genetics and consciousness to be able to safely interact with these orbs. Otherwise, they get injured. Now, keep that in mind, because what you're going to hear next is something that Tucker Carlson revealed about him being told by a medical specialist from Stanford University who specializes in brain injury about over 100 US military servicemen being seriously injured or killed, actually killed, when they interacted with UFOs, when they got too close to them. So let's listen to that.
A tenured Stanford medical school professor. He comes on and he's like, 11 years ago, the US government reached out to me because I'm an expert on head injuries, on brain injuries, traumatic brain injuries. And they had all these court cases from families of US servicemen, over 100, who'd been killed by UFOs. The Department of Defense was refusing to give them death benefits or medical benefits. And he's like, so they're in the courts. And I was like, there are over 100 servicemen killed by UFOs? Like, what? He's like, yeah. And there are court cases about it. I'm like, why isn't this on the front page of the New York Times? I don't know. And in a number of cases, these things have landed in military bases, including famously in Germany, in West Germany in the 70s. And servicemen have approached them. And they approach and they get traumatic brain injury or they're killed. And he studied their brains.
So there you have an admission that the military, for at least 11 years, have been sending people, their experts, to investigate these craft or arcs or probes. And what has happened is that their experts have been seriously injured as a result. Now, why is that? So the implication of Tucker Carlson's UFO story and JP's update that's coming, the full version will come out tomorrow, is that the US military have been sending personnel to investigate UFOs, and in many cases, they are injured or killed when they get too close. So the US military begins recruiting contactees to investigate UFOs and find that these can do so safely. Very important. Because the most common criticism I get from people who listen to JP's interviews, I say, well, I listen to this guy in Salla, I mean, you're being hoodwinked. No way could that guy be having these experiences. Man, he doesn't sound so articulate and barely speaks English and so doesn't have any educational qualifications. I mean, surely they'd be sending, PhDs or colonels and, professionals to investigate these craft. Shouldn't they? Wouldn't they? Well, now we know the answer. They did. They did send them. And what happened? Tucker Carlson explained what happened. Consciousness, genetics are what matters. Doesn't matter how many PhDs you have. Doesn't matter what kind of office you hold, how articulate you might be. What matters is that you can safely interact with these craft, and contactees can do so. And why is that? I think this is where JP's strengths come into focus, that he is very transparent. He doesn't have any guile. What you see is what you get. And he is very innocent and very gentle and a very caring, loving person. And he's currently serving with the US Army because that was the only way for him to be able to kind of like get more access to these missions, because this is part of the deal that's been struck between JP's Nordics that he's been in contact with since 2008 and the US Air Force. And I'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. So JP taken on covert missions by the US military in 2015 when he interacts safely with ancient technology and alien spacecraft. So in 2015, so we're talking 8 years ago, so this is just a few years after all of these military personnel were being killed, according to Tucker Carlson, for getting close to these ancient, or these extraterrestrial technologies, these UFOs. JP is being taken to interact with some of these craft. So at this time, JP was a civilian. And clearly the implication is that the US military needs individuals with the right genetics and consciousness to safely interact with ARC's motherships and their orbs and probes. So this is really very, very significant. So JP actually talks about, in our interview tomorrow, what happens to people who get too close to the space arcs, or to the probes coming from the space arcs. So this is what he had to say. Let's listen.
Most of the UFOs that people are seeing right now, they sometimes, if they catch them, they just disappear to another dimension, or sometimes they catch them, but they can't get close to them. It could kill anybody that comes to contact to these particular orbs or craft that are connected to the arc. And sometimes they can act hostile to anything that is trying to catch them, but it's a protection mechanism. It's not that they're bad or that they are trying to harm, is that they're trying to get back to the arc to input this information that they're capturing.
So there you see JP confirming that those that don't have the right stuff can get seriously injured if they get too close to these orbs from these motherships that are really gathering intelligence for the space arcs, that have some kind of organic, artificial intelligence, whatever it is, to determine how suitable a population is for the arcs revealing themselves or interacting with that population in large, and that they can be very harmful for those that aren't ready or suited to interact with these. So JP told me this, and it matched exactly what Tucker Carlson had said. So there you have independent corroboration for JP's testimony. Now, JP is saying that these arc probes, they are being released in greater and greater numbers. So here's another clip from our interview coming out tomorrow. Any final words you wanted to say about this mission and recent missions to the Grand Canyon and to the, to that underground base that Jazit and the Nordics were at?
Mm-hmm. The Jazit people, the guy that his name was Jazit, those UFOs are coming out as well and making contact to different people. And they're connected with the Nordics as well. So there's going to be a lot of round orbs. The round orbs, I want people to understand that the round ones are from the arcs. And the one that look like plasma, that sometimes our people are going to see them now coming in and out from clouds, especially when it's really cloudy and there's a thunderstorm about to happen, or when it's slightly cloudy, you're going to see these metallic orbs that are going to be coming in and out from these clouds. And sometimes when you see the blue sky, you can see them in the middle. Like people are going to video and take pictures of these particular orbs. And then the ones that are from the Nordics that are connected to the military, these look saucer-like, and sometimes they blend in with the blue sky. But these also are like, you're going to see them looking like saucer-like, and they're slightly bigger than the orbs. I don't know if I sent you a video, I think it was a couple months ago, of a orb weaving in through the clouds and coming out through the clouds. That particular orb was from the Ark. And then there's another picture that I took in Orlando that looked like a saucer-like UFO vehicle. That one is from the Nordics. So people are going to see them all over the world, these ships. They're going to come more and more out. And it's not only coming from the arcs on Earth. These orbs are coming in from space as well into the atmosphere of Earth. And sometimes we're seeing them around the moon. Now, is it going to be a good time this month when the moon comes full and it's coming out to half moon? This is going to be the month, and next month to take pictures and to take video of the moon. You're going to see more of these orbs coming in and out from the moon, and seeing these UFOs coming from the moon and to Earth. So a lot of people are going to take these videos and pictures now in these 2 months coming up. There's going to be a lot of traffic coming up because we have ships coming from Jupiter that are already around by Mars and around Earth, that people are realizing that these are like motherships and all that. So yeah, we're living interesting times, Doc, and a lot of people are going to be happy and a lot of people are going to be shocked.
So JP is telling us here that these orbs are going to be seen increasingly as 2023 plays out, and that at some point the arcs are going to follow. People are going to start seeing those. And so there's a countdown happening right now. And the military intelligence community, the deep state, are all trying to find out exactly what the timetable is, but there seems to be a countdown on. So we are really in the midst of some kind of countdown. So this gives us a context for understanding why the rediscovery of ancient technology is part of the White Hat's extraterrestrial disclosure plan, how this is part of a preparation for what lies ahead, because the release of ancient technology is by no means where it all ends. This is just to open up our minds to get ready for the big disclosures that are to be made. And of course, those of you that have seen this article, read this article, Elena Danam described what Forhan saw at the Blue Ridge Mountain facility on January 7, 2023, and that he handed over to the commanding general of NORAD, or US and US Northern Command, General Glenn Van Herk, a drive containing a disclosure plan. And that it's been confirmed from the very beginning when Elena was relaying the information from Commander Ardana, that the release of these ancient technologies is part of this White Hat's extraterrestrial disclosure plan. So the inner Earth civilizations are going to be revealing themselves in 2023. So let's play this clip.
So the king sits down, and I see his face. His eyes are brownish, and his pupil is huge, black, but his eyes are huge, but it's like brownish, like clearish brown. Really nice. It hypnotizes you when you look at him in the eyes. And I looked at him straight in the eyes, and I just got on one. I felt like getting on one knee, and I got on one knee, and I said, "Yes, Your Majesty." And he's like, "We're going to start going up, and people are going to start seeing more of us." And he told me to say that they're going to start teaching on Earth what they used to teach to other cultures. And that they're going to make the decision to some people, if they want to go to where their cavern is. They decide if they want to come there. So he wants people to visit more of these parks, these massive forest parks, because they're going to open the opportunity for people to visit their cavern systems and let them to decide if they want to stay there and live there, because the arcs are getting ready to build up heat. And when they build heat, they're going to resurface. The arc also on the moon is getting hot as well. So the king was asking me to tell everybody that is hearing that soon that they're going to get the opportunity to visit these caverns. So a lot of people are going to be coming out with experiences of visiting these caverns with these people. So that was quite interesting, Doc.
So JP is telling us in that interview, and that's another one that you can get on Exopolitics today, that the Inuit civilizations, the Ant people, and others are going to start openly revealing themselves, interacting with more and more surface humans, introducing surface humanity to their underground civilization. Very interesting. I mean, for those that recall what I had to say earlier about the halls of Amenti, maybe we'll get the opportunity for people to go into the halls of Amenti and maybe see if Thoth is still asleep. I imagine, I believe he's actually being activated. That Ningish Zida, that's the correct name, is activating or awakening. JP's also talked about his missions to an underground civilization. Again, he was taken as part of a covert team in this underground location, somewhere in the Florida region, and he saw a different underground civilization to the Ant people. This one was a kind of tall, Nordic-looking group, about 8 foot tall, and there was a Nordic spaceport right next to it. And in our interview, he described the hundreds of spacecraft. That's his drawing. So he has arranged there, those white dots that you see, those are just kind of like these spacecraft. The cigar, so they're not cigar-shaped, they're actually flying saucer-shaped spacecraft. So these are all flying saucer-shaped spacecraft, hundreds of them, and he says that that the Nordics are going to be revealing more of their craft as 2023 unfolds. So this takes me back to what he said earlier, that you're going to see two types of UFOs that are extraterrestrial in origin. You're going to see the flying saucer-shaped craft that come from the Nordics, Galactic Federation, if you like, and you're going to see the round orbs that come from the space arcs, and those space arcs are there to do a kind of monitoring, to interact and find out what's going on with the surface humanity to determine when we're ready. So we're definitely building to some pretty major changes. So in his interview on the Nordic space fleet, buried under this underground civilization of this Nordic-looking group and disclosure, JP had to say this. So let me play this clip. All of those hundreds of ships, those Nordic ships that you saw, I mean, they are all part of this kind of monitoring of surface humanity. I mean, there's no plan to have those kind of like reveal themselves or anything like that. Were you told anything about that?
They do show themselves to certain people. They say people that are worthy, that are pure of heart. But the military has a video of these ships, but they're still holding them back. There's still a group of people that really wants to show videos and all that, but they said it's because of protection of humanity. They need to keep this secret for now, and they know that they really want the public to see the technology that they have, to share the technology, but they're keeping the technology safe because there's a temporal war going on, and it's dangerous the temporal war that's going on. There's people jumping on different timelines, doing different things. So because of the temporal war,
and the technology that they have, they say it's dangerous now to reveal the ships and all that. It's dangerous. Everybody's knowing about the arcs right now. So once the arcs are fully activated, that's when the first wave is going to be all these UFOs coming out and making contact with major powers, with the civilian sector, them coming out. We're going to see them like cars. We're going to see these ships like birds, like a regular basis. You know, we're seeing them now on a regular basis, but when the arcs are fully activated, that's when you're going to see all these fleets of UFOs coming out, landing, flying up on different places. You're going to see them. People are going to be riding on them. And then that's also when the AMP people are going to come out and interact with us. But there's a lot of people that don't want that to happen. They don't want that part to happen. 2025, supposedly they're going to send people to the moon. And that's going to be revealed also what we have in the moon to the public. 2024 also is going to be a major breakthrough. But 2023, they're deciding 2023 for the UFOs to come more public and fly out more for 2023.
Okay, so some of you might ask, well, I mean, how can we know this is really happening, that these UFOs, that the Nordics and the Galactic Federation are going to start revealing more and more of their ships? Well, I already walked you through that paper by Sean Kirkpatrick and R.V. Loeb talking about motherships releasing orbs, extraterrestrial motherships. So already you have people involved or connected with the deep state, with the military intelligence community, putting out information that these motherships are releasing these craft. So this is coming. We do have disclosure coming. There's a countdown underway, and the deep state cannot stop it. So the main takeaways from JP's that last extract was that the US military is cooperating with the Inner Earth Civilization and Nordic ETs on a disclosure plan. Exactly what Leonard Danan said happened at Raven Rock in January of 2023, just a few months ago. When space arcs fully activate, space fleets will emerge for the public to see. I mean, that must terrify the deep state, which I think gives us an idea why R.V. Loeb and Kirkpatrick are putting out their paper. They're shaping public perception so that if the deep state wants to kind of like create chaos as the space arcs reveal themselves, then they've already shaped public opinion sufficiently to make the public think that these space orbs and the craft are somehow associated with aggressive actions, the threats. So 2023, more sightings of Nordic space fleets are coming. So JP said 2023 is when it's going to happen. The deep state wants to delay it, but I don't think they can. I don't believe they can. So, you know, as I bring this presentation to a conclusion, what makes me say that any of this is really going to happen? Why are we going to experience a rollout of these ancient technologies as the first phase in a multifaceted series of steps that takes us to revelations about extraterrestrial spacecraft, orbs, giants, god kings, and so forth? What makes me believe that this is really happening right now? I think it's because the deep state and the white hats are kind of like, even though they're rivals and combating each other, when it comes to the release of ancient technologies, I think they have something in common. As far as the deep state is concerned, what they want to do is to distract people. So they want to distract people because they want people to be paying attention on the release of these technologies rather than world events that are going to lead to a lot of angry people. So this is something that the president of Kenya just said just a couple of weeks ago. So here's a clip. I'll just play that. And for those that can't follow what he's saying, I've transcribed what he said underneath, so you can just read it. So let me play it.
That those of you who are holding dollars, you shortly might go into losses. Better do what, because this market is going to be different in a couple of weeks.
So there you have the president of Kenya explaining that the US dollar is about to experience a dramatic collapse in terms of being the international reserve currency. Certainly something that the deep state would want people to be distracted from. Another thing is what's happening in Ukraine. The Russian, here you have a Colonel Douglas McGregor, who I think is really probably one of the most objective and clear-headed military strategists that understand what is happening in Ukraine right now. And so here he puts out regular articles, and he's saying that the Russian sledgehammer is falling in Ukraine, that the Ukrainian army is in a state of collapse, and that for close to a year now, the Western public has been gaslighted into believing that Ukraine is winning. The Russian military is in shambles. They're suffering manpower shortages and equipment shortages, and they're experiencing one military debacle after another. The truth is the exact opposite. And now at the bottom, there's another source on Ukraine, the New Atlas. Both of these channels on YouTube you can find that also describe what's happening accurately from the perspective of military personnel and experts that understand the nuances of the Ukraine conflict. And this particular video says, US experts grapple with Ukraine endgame, admit war of attrition is, and it goes on. So the Ukraine situation is collapsing. Why else would the deep state want to kind of like distract people from international news? Well, the COVID emergency is over. They've had to bring that to an end. So they're now looking for the next big distraction. And I think that the rediscovery of ancient technologies is the deep state distraction. But on the other hand, for the White Hats and the Earth Alliance, it's the first step in a multi-phase disclosure plan. So this is why I believe that the rediscovery plan is moving forward, because both the deep state and the Earth Alliance want to see this move forward for completely different reasons. One, to distract; the other side seeing it as the first step to prepare humanity for the more startling revelations that lie down the track. So here, I think, is the clearest sign yet that the deep state supports the first phase of a big rediscovery plan. So remember I told you earlier about Zawi Hawass being a good guy that had been muzzled for decades from revealing the truth of what was going on in Egypt? I think that as a reward for his silence, that the deep state is allowing him to be the person to reveal what the secrets are that are about to be disclosed. I think this is a deal. I think the deep state, being that they follow a certain type of cosmic law, and if someone plays ball with them for decades, then they will uphold their agreement. The deep state is very particular about upholding agreements. So I think an agreement was reached with Zawi Hawass, and I think this is exemplified in him being allowed to come to the United States and give for the first time a multi-city tour talking about these new discoveries in Egypt. And he's going to be starting his tour in Phoenix. So this is where he talks in this clip. it's a short clip. It's just him talking about this upcoming tour of his. So I'll play this now.
The time to reveal the secrets of ancient Egypt has finally come. Many mysteries of the pharaohs will be revealed. I'm giving the largest lecture tour ever happened in history. I'm giving 23 lectures in 23 cities. Will reveal many important discoveries not announced before. The secrets of the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx. This is the time, the final time, that I will reveal the mystery of ancient Egypt. The
many secrets of ancient Egypt have been hidden for centuries, and now Dr. Zahi Hawass is ready to reveal them all. Register now and discover the stories of ancient Egypt. Don't miss out on this unforgettable evening.
So there you have Zahi Hawass describing his tour, and I think a couple of points that are very, very interesting. One, a 23-city tour, 23 human chromosomes. And for those that are familiar with the Wingmakers material, they talked about 23 chambers in this Shackle Canyon. And he is beginning his tour in Phoenix, Arizona. Well, Arizona is where the Grand Canyon is. And Phoenix was, I mentioned earlier the Phoenix Gazette, the Arizona Gazette. There's some confusion about the name that the Smithsonian did, but the fact that he's beginning his tour in Phoenix, I think is highly significant. I think this is how the deep state is going to roll out its its rediscovery plan, and Zahi Hawass is at the center of that. Now, as I mentioned, for the deep state, this is their big distraction. They want to distract us from these other things that are going on that would deeply embarrassing to the deep state. But as far as the Earth Alliance is concerned, this plan of first revealing the ancient history that can be found in the Giza pyramids, Grand Canyon, and elsewhere, that's the first step in a multi-step disclosure process. So I just want to finish my presentation with an extract from the trailer that was put out where I talk about this multi-phase disclosure plan, and I think it's worth paying attention to the different steps in this process. So let me play this extract from the trailer. For thousands of years, remnants of long-forgotten civilizations have secretly existed under the Earth's surface and oceans. Ancient peoples built flourishing subterranean and underwater cities using advanced technologies and knowledge they had preserved from their society's achievements and from extraterrestrial visitors. Many of these ancient civilizations are the survivors of Earth catastrophes which have periodically struck our world. Over the centuries, the residents of these secret underground and underwater cities have interacted with surface dwellers, sharing some of their advanced knowledge and technologies. Thus began the legends of Agartha, Shambhala, and fabulous subaquatic cities populated by mermen. Today, the dwellers of these underground and undersea cities have joined a comprehensive plan to expose themselves to surface humanity and to reveal the true history of Earth. They have begun working with an Earth alliance of nations possessing secret space programs that are working with off-world visitors to bring about a quantum leap in human evolution. The multi-step plan involves several phases, each of which will reveal wondrous secrets beginning with the ancient technological artifacts hidden inside the pyramids of Egypt within underground caverns in the Americas and elsewhere. The residents of these underground and undersea cities also plan to introduce themselves to many more surface dwellers and allow some individuals to visit their cities and even remain if they wish. The next phase of the plan will be to officially introduce secret space programs to the rest of the world, along with the advanced propulsion, energy, and health technologies that make such off-world programs possible. Finally, extraterrestrials will reveal themselves when humanity is ready to deal with the truth about off-planet visitors and our genetic origins. So there you have at least 4 steps in this multi-phase process that I think is probably what it was that Thorhan handed over to the Earth Alliance at Raven Rock Mountain Complex earlier this year. First, the revelation of ancient technologies found all over the Earth, Giza pyramids, Grand Canyon, and so forth. Inner Earth civilizations revealing themselves, introducing themselves to surface humanity. Secret space programs being rolled out. People get used to the idea that we actually are capable of flying deep into space, even interstellar, using these advanced space technologies that the different military services, not only from the United States, but also other countries have developed. And finally, the extraterrestrials, the space arcs. That'll be the final phase. And it's those 4 phases that I think the Earth Alliance wants to roll out in a sequential, gradual way, whereas the deep state wants to just focus on the first step as a means of distracting, but they can't stop it. So we are really in for some very interesting times as all this plays out. I think 2023 is going to be an incredible year, and I do believe that by very soon, maybe as soon as May of this year, when Zahi Hawass begins his 23 city tour, we're going to have some incredible revelations about these ancient technologies that have been, discovered or rediscovered in these different locations in Egypt, Grand Canyon, and elsewhere. I want to thank my team that's helped me. Jazz Marlin, who did the trailer for this webinar, has been helping you in the chat, and has been helping us with the technical side of this webinar production. And of course, you got to meet him yesterday when he had to step in and take control. And thank you to Jazz for all his work. And of course, my beautiful wife, Angelica, who's been nothing but an inspiration and great support, and works very hard to ensure the success of these productions. So eternally grateful to Angelica. And finally, to you, to support me, to be part of this webinar series. I'm very, very thankful for all your support. Thank you for all you do. Aloha, and I look forward to my next webinar with you.
You have been listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Join or start a conversation in the comments. Take the time to explore the vast library of best-selling books, webinars, and podcasts by Dr. Salla. Visit exopoliticstoday.com.